this lecture, we will review the art of persuasion. Persuasion is the process by which a message induces change in beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors. In psychology, persuasion is the ability of others to convince you to change your thoughts or behaviors due to variant principles and through different methods. Persuasion is an intentional action. No one unintentionally persuades someone to do anything. Persuasion is found everywhere in our society. For example, advertisers try to convince us that their product is better than others. Politicians convince us that they deserve our vote. NGOs and other groups try to influence us on the heated topics such as abortion, civil rights, environmental issues. In psychology, persuasion is defined as the efforts to change our attitudes through the use of various kinds of messages. These messages usually appear on billboards, television commercials, magazine ads, telemarketers, pop-up ads, and even through our friends and family. Now, there are two routes to persuasion called the ELM Model. What happens when you are exposed to persuasive messages such as commercial ads? The answer that has emerged from hundreds of researchers is that people process persuasive message into two distinct forms: systematic processing or central route to persuasion, and heuristic processing or peripheral route to persuasion. It was Richard Petty and Associates who proposed the elaborative likelihood model, or the ELM, or dual process model. This model assumes that we do not always process communications the same way. When people think critically about the contents of a message, they are said to take a central route to persuasion and are influenced by the strength and quality of the arguments. When people do not think critically about the contents of a message, but focus instead on other cues, they take a peripheral route to persuasion. Now, systematic processing or central route to persuasion. By the way, some people say central route to persuasion or central route to persuasion. Either word's the same, okay? So, systematic processing involves careful consideration of message contents and the ideas it contains. This processing requires effort and absorbs much of our processing capacity. Second, the type of processing occurs if we have a lot of knowledge about the topic, have a lot of time to engage in careful thought, or the issue is important to us. And third, also, this processing occurs when our motivation and capacity to process information relating to a persuasive message is high. Now let's move on to the heuristic or peripheral route to persuasion. First, the peripheral route to persuasion involves the use of mental shortcuts, such as a belief that expert's statement can be trusted, or the idea that if it makes me feel good, I am in favor of it. Second, the type of processing requires less effort and allows us to react to persuasive messages automatically. Third, we engage in this type of processing when we lack the capacity or time to process the information more carefully, or when we lack the motivation. And fourth, it's easier to persuade us when we are thinking in this mode than when we engage in systematic processing. Therefore, advertisers, politicians, salesperson, or others who wish to change our attitude prefer to push us into the peripheral mode of processing. The systematic versus heuristic distinction helps explain why people can be more easily persuaded when they are distracted than when they are not. It's important because under these conditions, people have limited capacity to process the information, and hence the processing takes place by heuristic's mode of processing. Now, the elements of persuasion. Among the ingredients of persuasion explored by social psychologists are the following. 1. The communicator. 2. The message. 3. How the message is communicated. And 4. The audience. Now, the key elements into persuasion, according to Psychology to Safety, researchers aimed at understanding persuasion have studied the source, who delivers the message, the types of messages, and the audience. These approaches have yielded some important findings on persuasion in psychology. The following are important and consistently obtained. First, the physical attractiveness and liking. Physically attractive people are more persuasive than the ones who are not perceived as attractive. For example, you must have noticed that advertisers frequently use attractive models to sell their products. Since we try to keep our cognition consistent with our effort, it follows that we are more likely to agree with people we like than the ones we don't like. This is one reason that famous musicians or actors are selected as spokesperson for various causes and products. Since we like them, we are more likely to get persuaded by them. Next is credibility. Communicators who seem to know what they are talking about or who are experts concerning what they are talking about are more persuasive than those who lack experience. For example, if a doctor tells us that a particular brand of cream is good, we would get persuaded by him or her rather than an engineer who suggests the same brand. Also, members of our group are seen as more credible than out-group members. Therefore, we are more likely to get influenced from the members of our own group. Also, communicators lose their credibility if we ever find that they have their stake, which is financial or otherwise, in persuading others. People who seem to be arguing against their self-interest come out as credible and thus persuasive. Next, the content of the message. Messages that don't appear to be designed to change our attitudes are often more successful than those that seem to be designed to achieve this goal. So, simply knowing that a sales pitch is coming can undermine persuasion. Next, fear appeals. Fear is a particularly primitive and powerful emotion, serving as an early warning system that signals danger. The brain of humans and other animals contain a mechanism that is designed to give priority to bad news, enabling us to respond quickly without having to stop to think about it. Not surprisingly, the use of fear-based appeals causes persuasion. Certain religious cults use scare tactics to indoctrinate new members. So do public health organizations that often graphically portray the damage done to those who smoke cigarettes, use drugs, overeat, and engage in unprotected sex. Next, positive messages. Like fear helps induce persuasion, so does positive emotion. According to Alice Eason, people see the world through rose-colored glasses when they are feeling good. They are filled with high spirits, and people become more sociable, more generous, more generally positive in their outlook. People also make decisions more quickly and with relatively little thought. The result: positive feelings activate the peripheral route to persuasion, which is automatic and less effortful. What do you think? Do you think that this indeed is true? That positive feelings activate a certain persuasiveness? Tell me what you think. Now, according to opentext.edu, persuasion serves an important function in a social society. If you are not successful in persuading others, you could miss out on job opportunities or have poor relationships or no relationships at all. If you are unaware of persuasion attempts, then you could be taken advantage of. So, for further consideration, take a moment and think about who tries to persuade you on a daily basis, and whom do you try to persuade? Make a list of these people. What kind of things do people persuade other people, such as their friends, their family, or even their enemies, to do? What are the different techniques people use to get these people to do what they want? Make a list and tell me about it. Now remember, persuasion is the process by which a message induces changes in beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors. And in psychology, persuasion is the ability of others to convince you to change your thoughts or behavior due to varying principles and through different methods. Persuasion is an intentional action. It is the efforts to change our attitudes through the use of various kinds of messages. And these messages usually appear where? On billboards, television commercials, magazine ads, telemarketers, pop-up ads, and even through our family and friends. In my next lecture, we will review group influence. What is a group? What is social facilitation? What is social loafing? There's so much we're going to talk about in regards to group polarizations and groupthink and the influence of the majority and the minority. How do individuals influence the group?